What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Pitchside with Parker. Got another video for you today, and today we're going to talk about Last Dance. I'm going to kind of do a review of my experience watching The Last Dance, and then also how that relates to the LeBron versus Michael Jordan GOAT conversation. Be sure to like this video right now, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to keep posting a lot of videos. I'm trying to keep doing this as frequently as possible. So subscribe, come along for the ride, and there will be lots more good content like this. I never got to see Michael Jordan play in his career, and seeing The Last Dance really, I feel like, just gave me a much better appreciation for how incredible he was as a player and some of the feats that he accomplished throughout his career, and the reason ultimately that people think he's the best player ever, and people revere him so highly and think of him as this almost otherworldly figure in basketball. But yeah, let's talk more about actually The Last Dance. One thing I really appreciated about Last Dance was the way that it showed his teammates. To get to see the development and the greatness and the character of guys like Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman especially, but several other players as well, Steve Kerr, John Paxson. It gave me a little context for the greatness of somebody like Scottie Pippen, where I didn't necessarily know it. I knew him as Jordan's sidekick, but to see his entire backstory and all the things he was going through in his career, that was really interesting to me. And then, of course, there was all the different people that, pissed Jordan off along the way. Isaiah Thomas, Clyde Drexler, just all these different guys, Moses Malone. The list goes on and on and on and on. I mean, that was kind of the central part of a lot of the storytelling in the documentary, but getting to see just Jordan's crazy drive and how he would even go so far as to make up stuff about players in order to beat them. And I remember my high school soccer coach used to tell us to do stuff like that. Like, if you don't have enough motivation to beat this team, make up something. Say that this player said something about your mom and you're just going to go at him. And I always remember when my coach said that, I would think, well, if it's not real, how can I really commit to that? How can I really act on that if this guy didn't actually say anything about my mom? And yet Jordan was psycho enough to actually do that. And it was that just absolute level of crazy that made him so good. But again, that was something I felt like the documentary showed really well. And I was so engaged when we got to watch stuff like that, because you pass Jordan the iPad and he gives you that look, that just disrespect, the utter disrespect. It seemed like that was a big theme in Jordan's career, and I was just eating it up. I was just loving it. But my very favorite moment had to be the Dream Team practices. To me, that stands out above anything else, and again, is a moment that really characterizes Michael Jordan, because his ability to be down against the other 12 best players in America, who are all representing Team USA, basically one-on-one with Magic, and just say, nah, my team might be down 7 or 9 or whatever, however many points it was. I'm going to take this team back. Give me the ball. I'm going to score on all the best players in the NBA, and you can't stop me. That was the moment where I was like, wow, Jordan is just so clear of all these other guys. As great as Magic's career was, as great as, Barkley and Malone and all these other guys were that were on the team, like, Jordan was just on another level, and it was shown many times throughout the documentary. But those Dream Team practices definitely were, for me, where I felt like it showed out more than anywhere else. And it was also cool for me to just see the camaraderie of those teams, because I feel like people hate on the NBA for that nowadays. Like, the players are friends with each other. It's annoying. They all just hang out with each other in the off season, and they play AAU together, and their kids go to school together. Like, these guys were doing that back in the 80s and 90s too. So let's not act like this is anything new. And when you take it all together, the thing that really stuck out to me was how Jordan just seemed like the perfect American hero. And I think that is why I really started to understand his rise and his massive popularity, because I feel like he just embodied so many of the things that people see as qualities to strive for in this country. Working harder than anybody else, wanting it more than anybody else. And if you do those things, you can be the best. And there's a certain cutthroat, maniacal genius aspect to it that I feel like is really revered in our culture, and he certainly played into that. And I think that was part of the reason that his celebrity went so much beyond sports. It almost felt like he was an icon for America. And the deals with Nike, the deals with McDonald's, the deal with Gatorade, like, these are all emblematic of the same type of thing, where every company saw him as the reflection of everything that we want people to be like Mike. And from that aspect, that was another thing I definitely learned from this documentary was just the way in which he was admired and the way in which he was revered, I think reflected a lot about our society. I will say though, for as good as the documentary was and how many good stories and how I felt like I was locked in the whole time, it felt a little one-sided, but that's the only real criticism I have of it. Other than that, again, an excellent piece of TV for me, and just, I think, what I needed and what a lot of sports fans needed during quarantine. It also got me thinking, if you were to make a documentary about any other player in that same way as Last Dance came out, who would you pick? Who are the players or even the teams necessarily that have that level of appeal for you where you would be so locked in to see what they had to say? Because I've talked about this with some friends before, and we definitely came up with a few names. I think Kevin Durant in the future could be a really, really interesting person from an NBA perspective. Obviously, LeBron, I mean, you have to imagine that almost as some sort of rebuttal, you would think LeBron gonna have something coming out. I mean, he's done Space Jam 2 now, and he seems to follow in a lot of things that Jordan does. So will LeBron come out with a documentary? A Tiger Woods documentary would be phenomenal. I know a Kobe documentary is in the works. And the last one I would throw out is like the Patriots franchise. I think they've been one of the most dominant dynasties that we've seen in American sports. And just to hear all the backstory of Belichick, Brady, Robert Kraft, and all the nonsense I'm sure they got up to over the years, I think that one would be juicy. Think about all the scandals that they've had, even like Deflategate, Spygate, all these gates, the Aaron Hernandez situation, Kraft and Meek Mill, like Kraft getting arrested last year for soliciting sex work in Florida. Like, I think that would be a phenomenal docuseries as well. So as I said before, watching The Last Dance, I feel like gave me a new perspective on the Jordan-LeBron debate in terms of who's the best player of all time. Because I've had this argument more times than I could count. I've always been on the side of LeBron, but that's as somebody who never saw Jordan play. And although that is still true, I feel like I got a really good sense of his career arc through The Last Dance, and the amount of detail that was put into it, all the moments that were captured. I feel like I got a much better sense of the greatness of Jordan's career. And to me, that has really shifted things in his favor in this GOAT argument. So I put out a poll on Twitter. If you don't follow me, go ahead and look up at Parker K. Johnson on Twitter. Give me a follow. It's a great way to get involved with these videos. So the results of the poll, it was 51% Michael Jordan, 47% LeBron in terms of who is your NBA greatest player of all time. And then we got one vote, 1.7% for other. And Ben Krieger, look, I really genuinely read everything that you sent me about Kareem. He does have a great resume, but come on, man. We are talking about Michael Jordan and LeBron James. I don't care how many finals Kareem has. I don't care if he has the most points played. He played a ton of seasons. He is not in the conversation with those guys. You're wild for voting that, and that's why you were the only vote for anybody other than LeBron or Michael Jordan. But anyway, Mike, 51%, LeBron, 47%. And I also asked a follow-up question. Did The Last Dance change your opinion on the LeBron and Michael debate? Because to me it did, but the overwhelming response was no. So out of 37 votes, 84% said their mind did not change based on watching The Last Dance. So I thought that was pretty interesting too. And let me walk you through my thinking in this LeBron versus Michael argument. So let's start with a very basic comparison between these two. Basically, if you look at any of the stat categories, anywhere, counting stats, averages, advanced stats, these two are very, very close. Michael, better volume scorer. LeBron, slightly more efficient. Advanced stats have them really close, but overall they are pretty much even in terms of most stat categories. And I think that makes a lot of sense because these are consensus the two best players of all time. So realize that when we had this conversation, we're really splitting hairs here, and it's very close, and the stats bear that out as well. So the main stat that anybody cares about and will be the first thing brought up in any LeBron-Michael debate, Michael Jordan has the ability to say that he never lost an NBA final. Going 6-0 in the finals, LeBron himself has lost 6 finals. So that is a part of the argument where a lot of people will stop there. They'll say, look, Michael never lost the finals. He never even went to a game 7 in the finals. LeBron 3-6 in the finals. He's not clutch. He's not a winner to the same extent that Michael Jordan was. Jordan has him beat there. But I think to blindly compare finals resumes is a bit unfair to LeBron. I think there's really only 2 finals out of the 6 that they lost that you would say that LeBron could have done better. I would say 2011 against the Mavs and 2014 against the Spurs. Those are really the only 2 where I would say LeBron had competitive teams or a better team and maybe should have won or could have played better. Meanwhile, Michael Jordan, I feel like, had the superior team in every finals that they played. Yes, there was a lot of great competition in the East, which is where there's a big difference here, and it's, again, becomes very hard to split hairs because for the most part in LeBron's career, he didn't have a lot to go through until the finals, but he would play great teams in the finals. MJ, kind of the inverse, he would play great teams in the East, and then once he got to the finals, he was able to, win pretty comfortably a lot of the time. And then there's a few other things in terms of the playoffs, again, and I think I'm breaking this down so much because everybody talks about winning, and everybody talks about their records in the playoffs because, again, these are players that are so hard to compare. People talk about Jordan's finals record, but the first 3 years that he was in the playoffs, they got bounced in the first round, and he got swept twice. Yeah, he played some good teams. He played those 80s Celtics teams that were really good and went on to the finals, but if he was that good, wouldn't he have advanced past them? LeBron took a team with Zydrunas Ilgauskas as the second best player and took them to the finals in 2007. Larry Hughes was the 3rd leading scorer on that team, and Drew Gooden and Sasha Pavlovich were the other 2 starters on that team. That is a atrocious team. Yes, Jordan's teams in the 80s with the Bulls were not very good, but were the teams that consisted of Jordan, Orlando Woolridge, Quentin Daly, George Gervin, Sidney Green, were those that much worse than that Cavs team? I don't think so. I think that's better than the Cavs team. That's an area where people kind of overlook Jordan's failures in the playoffs, and especially his failures to do it without a good team. Jordan never won without Scottie. Jordan never got past the Lakers or the Celtics in their primes. And the year after Jordan went to play minor league baseball, the Bulls won 55 games. Clearly, Jordan was not the only piece to success. He was by far the best player on those teams. He made a difference in big situations when no other player would have made the same difference. That is 100% true. But without Scottie Pippen, without Dennis Rodman, without some of those role players around them, Jordan is not doing all of that. And yes, LeBron had to team up with some good players to do the same thing, but the fact that LeBron was dragging teams to the finals with much, much worse players around him, I think speaks a lot to the quality of LeBron as a player. And this is when we get into a bigger argument of what does the GOAT mean to you? Greatest player of all time. Does that mean the best basketball player? How much do wins factor in? I think this is what this debate comes down to in its essence, is that people who think you need to win to be successful are always going to pick Michael Jordan because he won more than LeBron. But when you look at who affected things more on a basketball court, to me, there is no debate that LeBron is the best basketball player of all time. LeBron still won 3 NBA finals. He beat the consensus best team ever assembled. Jordan, meanwhile, never won without Pippen. He never beat a historically great team in the finals. He beat some really, really good teams, but he never beat a team on the level of the Warriors in the finals. And Jordan, for as much as he says he's all about competition, he's all about winning, that's the only thing he cares about, he quit at his peak because he had no assurance that the players and the coach around him were going to come back. And that is one of the things I learned most in The Last Dance, is that he was pampered. I mean, he got what he wanted, and that's true of LeBron too, but he signed 1-year contracts because he didn't know what the team was going to look like around him. He wouldn't tell his teammates what he was going to do because he wanted to make sure they were in first. And for all his greatness with the Bulls, all his greatness with Team USA, he was always surrounded by great players when he won, and I can't take that out of the equation. Here's a hypothetical to consider. My roommate brought this up, and I thought it was a really interesting point. Imagine that LeBron had come before Jordan. Imagine LeBron was the player in the 90s that kind of had elevated basketball to its new level. Took it worldwide, became a huge celebrity, won a few titles. We'll even say he keeps the same finals record. Say he goes 3-6 in the 90s, makes 9 straight finals. I don't think that we would look at Jordan the same way. And I think that shows that LeBron's greatness is so understated because he's always compared to Jordan. And until he wins 6 rings, for a large amount of the population, he can't even be in the conversation. And that's completely unfair to LeBron. I think if LeBron came first and he was the standard that people were judged by, Jordan would be seen as a stat patter. Jordan would be seen as potentially a Durant who couldn't win without, having other players around him. He would be seen primarily as a psychopathic asshole because he's terrible to his teammates. Not to mention that in this day and age, I don't think Jordan could handle the media landscape. There is no way. Meanwhile, I think LeBron would have done a fine job handling what Jordan had to go through. And it was hard for Jordan, don't get me wrong. Like, being the first athlete to be cast into that level of celebrity in basketball, pretty outrageous. And you could tell what toll that took on him. But I think LeBron would have been able to handle that. I don't think Jordan could handle Twitter. And when you look at it from that perspective, what it comes down to for me is that I think LeBron could do 95% of what Michael Jordan could do. Meanwhile, I think if you reverse the roles, I think Jordan could only do maybe 75 or 80% of what LeBron has done in his career. Again, this shows that they are both phenomenal players. They both deserve to go down as top 2 of all time. But for me, LeBron takes the cake. And although watching The Last Dance brought them a lot closer in the argument for me and helped me understand why people of the generation above me prefer Jordan so much and admire him so highly, I still think that when everything is taken together, LeBron is still my GOAT. So anyway, that's my thoughts on it. I'm going to put a poll in the video. I think it should go up here in the corner. And if you miss out on the Twitter poll, or maybe your mind was changed by this video, I feel like based on the polls, that probably won't happen. But in any case, if you want to vote, look up there, vote in the poll, say who is your greatest of all time in the NBA. I would love to know and see if it shows anything different than the Twitter poll. And also in the comments, comment who you would want to see a documentary on like The Last Dance, because I love this documentary. It sparked this whole debate, and I'm really glad that we all got to watch it. So yeah, that's all for this video. Thank you as always for watching. And again, please like, please subscribe, share this video. Let's keep the train rolling. I'm going to keep making these videos, and I hope that you guys will keep watching them. And I'm just really excited for where we can go with this channel. So thank you for supporting, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.